welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thank you for joining me. I'll be your astrologer today. Or I guess you guys could probably call me Oz because you can hear my voice, but you're not seeing me. So I'm going to be doing a video for you guys today on the up and coming full moon in the sign of Aries. If you guys like my content, you want to see more of it, make sure you like, comment, share, or subscribe. Please click the bell button below to subscribe to my channel. I'm here every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday trying to make sense of what's going on in the cosmos. All right, guys. Well, this is like a bit of like a very humbling experience for me, and I'll keep it very short and sweet, but I am filming this obviously right around the time of the solar eclipse in Libra. And as many of you guys may or may not know, that damn eclipse is so close to my ascendant. And I had a feeling that something was going to happen. And unfortunately, I have come down with some very gnarly food poisoning. I am able to work. Everything's fine, but I'm just not feeling well. And I did not want to leave you guys high and dry. So I apologize. I can't see you today. But I cannot help but just like laugh sometimes when life happens, because as I was kind of doing the preparation for this full moon, it's just so bang on with a lot of the themes that are kind of connected to this. So not to confuse you guys, I'm filming this actually right around the time of the solar eclipse in Libra, but we are going to be discussing the October 17th, 2024 full moon in Aries. But very personal to me, being an Aries moon, kind of going through the Chiron moon transit myself and being a Libra rising. I feel like this entire experience that I'm having right now is mirroring a lot of the themes that are kind of coming up. So you might hear me kind of wrap on that a little bit. Obviously, we have full moons every 28 days. This is a full moon that's going to be taking place in the cardinal fire sign of Aries. And this will be right around 24 degrees of Aries. So on October 17th, 2024, it looks like it's coming in around 4:26 a.m. Pacific time, 6:26 a.m. Central time, and 7:26 a.m. Eastern time. I know we have people all over in different time zones all around the world, so you may have to adjust your time zone depending on where you are. But my, oh my, what an active full moon we're going to be having here. So I'm going to take you guys through the degree astrology. We're going to talk a little bit about the Sabian. If you hang tight to the end, I'll take you through the 12 rising signs. But we have got a lot going on in this full moon. So let's start first with the degree astrology. So obviously a full moon is when we see the moon come into a direct 180 degree opposition to the sun, okay? And for those of you guys who are watching around the beginning of October, this is going to be the full moon that we have had after the most recent solar eclipse in Libra. Okay, so these are kind of signs that are complementary to each other, where the solar eclipse in Libra was a south node eclipse, which represents kind of like this karmic undoing, what we're stepping away from, what's familiar, balancing things out in relationships, maybe kind of making some necessary adjustments. Now we have this full moon in Aries that is going to be kind of mirroring the buildup to this energy for the better part of the next 2 weeks. So this is going to be a particularly spicy, I think, lunar cycle, this particular lunar cycle between now and what will eventually be the new moon in Scorpio. Anyway, so this is a full moon that also dates back to the spring of 2024 when we had a solar eclipse in Aries. So let's look at that really quick so you guys can see what I'm talking about, because the storylines of an eclipse or a full moon usually play out over time. So when we look at this goes all the way back to around April 8th, 2024. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I definitely remember this eclipse. This was a solar eclipse. All right, we're still going to have another solar eclipse in Aries in the spring of 2025. Then we're pretty much done with these. But this was a solar eclipse that, if you guys go back and watch the video, I talk about how the connection between the sun, the moon, and Chiron all at 19 was planting seeds revolving around the relationship, 19 degrees, that we have with ourselves, right, Aries. And a solar eclipse is a catalyst for change. So you want to look at the area of Aries in your chart. You want to see which house that's in. And you want to reflect on what intentions you have been setting basically since April of 2024. Where has there been some difficult things coming up revolving around health and healing because of the connection to Chiron, revolving around also reorganizing or reevaluating the way that we look at healing because Mercury was retrograde conjunct Chiron. And also it was very close to that North Node, which was kind of aligning us with the direction of needing, I think, to kind of come to terms with some of the wounds that we just don't address within ourselves, things where we lack the capabilities or maybe the mental abilities, maybe the organizational skills, maybe the timing, the knowledge of knowing how to heal ourselves, right? That's just, it's so obvious with this eclipse. And I remember when I did this video, looking 6 months ahead into the future, going, then we will have a full moon, you know, pretty much conjunct Chiron. And whenever we don't initiate and focus on healing or kind of doing or cleaning up, it's going to come back to bite us in the ass, right? So then we have like this full moon that's going to be in Aries, and some particularly colorful aspects that are going to be happening. Anyway, this particular solar eclipse also features the ruler, which was in conjunction to Saturn, right? So we've got like Mars, which is traditionally a planet that's about forward motion, you know, linear stuff, getting things done, our little mini passions and battles, and you know, what we are really focusing on, kind of initiating, and it's moving through a mutable water sign where it's lost, right? Or there is some spiritual conquest, or there's something kind of going on revolving around, I don't know, Pisces things, water, bridges, storms, things revolving around dams, levees, hospitals, isolation, borders, abandonment, right? All of these kind of like Pisces things. And so a lot of what is transpiring as we're coming into this full moon in Aries mid-October has been seeded so long ago. Okay, so I just wanted to really touch on that. Aries can be positive in a sense where it can create this initiation into, you know, new opportunities. It can be about new jobs. It can be about new versions of ourselves. It can be about health and wellness and action and fitness and bravery and independence and entrepreneurialism. But also the darker side, I think, of this particular solar eclipse with Mercury retrograde, the conjunctions to Chiron, debilitated Mars conjunct Saturn, I think is really kind of screaming. There can be times where if we don't heal ourselves, then we isolate ourselves from other people and from the world. And that I guess maybe that sense of unawareness of those wounds within ourselves that we don't tend to, that we don't take care of, they end up coming back to bite us in the ass. And it ends up being a situation where then we really start playing out kind of like the Chiron, you know, kind of like archetypal theme. And I'll get into that with you guys in a second. But it definitely, isolation, separation, rejection, not feeling seen, being like an outsider is definitely the theme that comes up with Chiron. And a lot of it can be because of our own internal emotional wounds, but it could be like actual, you know, healing related things or injuries or sickness or illness that quite literally removes us, you know, from other people. And it makes us feel kind of spiritually run down and sick. which is why when I was getting ready to do this video, I was like, no, I'm going to do this damn video because it's so just like spot on with these themes. And I figure I would just, just teach through experience, Anyway, so this is where some of this stuff started. So now we're going to go and we're going to look at how this has kind of evolved and turned into a full moon now in October of 2024. So if you happen to have any placements, kind of the hot zone obviously is going to be, I would say, anywhere from about 20 to about maybe 25, maybe 26 degrees of Aries, okay? If you have a sun, a moon, a rising there, you are definitely feeling the heat of this full moon, and full moons bring some kind of conclusion and some kind of completion. Now, thank Goddess, this is not an eclipse. This is far enough away from the North Node that it is not an eclipse. However, it is wrapping up the lessons revolving around the solar eclipse that we had 6 months ago. So it's still going to feel like it is a karate chop of a full moon. Cardinal signs are daring. They are action-oriented. These are the signs that initiate the seasons. So at least here in the Northern Hemisphere, we think about Aries, and Aries doesn't really ask. It just kind of shows up, and, the creatures start kind of running around and flowers start blooming, and like life starts to kind of come back and the snow melts. Same thing with Cancer season, the initiation of summer and the summer solstice, and Libra season and the fall equinox, and Capricorn season when we are kind of being initiated into winter, and then we start to see the winter solstice. So they are the bringers of change, okay? So one thing that's really significant about this particular, I think full moon is that it's really it's kind of playing homage to the solar eclipse. You've got the full moon that's in Aries, but it's in a Pisces degree. So if you guys think back to that solar eclipse where Mars was conjunct Saturn, and then you had this stuff that was kind of brewing behind the scenes, where maybe it was kind of saying there was going to be secretive attacks involving water, or maybe that there was going to be a conspiracy revolving around storm manipulation. Maybe there was going to be issues with ports and ships, and issues revolving around, getting things across waterways, or that there was going to be issues revolving around sickness and hospitals. I think a lot of that was baked into that eclipse. But this being at 24 degrees, which is a Pisces degree, is playing off of that, okay? So obviously the strongest aspect that you're going to see during a full moon, unless you've got something else that's exactly conjunct it, is always going to be the opposition to the sun. So this is kind of showing this buildup in energy from the solar eclipse in Libra until we get to the full moon in Aries, where the energy is peaking, and it's bringing up the themes revolving around Aries. Who am I, right? What am I initiating? Where am I striking the match? Where am I taking action? Where am I fighting? Where am I being bold? Where am I being more independent and self-sufficient? And who am I, not just physically, but emotionally, right? In contrast to others, I guess, or I should say us, we, right? That's Libra. So it's going to always show us this complexity where our emotions can kind of get peaked whenever we're having to work alongside, support, help, be there for somebody, where sometimes we realize we need the help of another person. We need a partner, we need a spouse, we need a therapist, we need an astrologer. We need somebody who can kind of get in there and say, hey, I've got what you need. Just talk to me. So the opposition is the strongest at 24 degrees. But like I said, it is a Pisces degree. So if we were to look at degree astrology, 12 and 24 is always correlate and connect with Pisces. So, this is about disappearances. Right? That's why I was laughing. I was like, I'm going to be Oz for this video. And to be honest with you guys, I would almost rather shoot videos this way, because I genuinely am not crazy about being on camera. I really don't like doing it, but I do it because I know it's kind of part of the territory, but I'm loving doing this right now. So disappearances, something disappearing, one who disappears, right? It's also about a loss, things that we lose secretly or mysteriously, keeping secret, unexplored, unknown, fears, phobias, psyche, psychiatrists, insane people, mental institutions, mental diseases, hospitals, doctors and hospitals, things that are invisible, something hard to find, medication, pharmacy, chemists, pharmacists, isolated places, outskirts of town, vicinity of hospitals, prisons, or mental institutions, monasteries, sanctuaries, religious or divine nature, church, divine, Eden, God, or to be with God, hotels, management, things at night, when you're asleep, in a bedroom, in a bed, or a dream, errors, mistakes, oil, gas station, gasoline, drugs, drug dealers, drug addicts, photography, camera, false, insincere, counterfeit, forge, false representation, vague, foggy, obscure, research, labs, by the sea, fishermen, fishing nets, anything revolving around ports, drowning, to drown, poison, to take poison, to poison someone, godparents, or to run away or escape. So obviously this is all correlating to like Pisces, kind of like Neptunian themes, which can be a whole laundry list of things, to be honest with you. But it's being brought through the lens of Aries. The hidden things that we don't see that end up kind of wounding us the most. Something we don't see coming, how we hurt ourselves, right? And it's so directly connected to that solar eclipse with Mars, Saturn, and Pisces. And in turn, where there are things that we don't consider when it comes to ourselves, or where we're not doing ourselves any favors, or we're inflicting more pain, be that emotionally or physically, where it can also sometimes put us in a position of either hurting other people, right? Sun in opposition to Chiron, or needing support and care from others, Libra. Man, I think about how the second strongest aspect, if we're going by degree, is going to be the 2-degree square to Mars, okay? And Mars is the dispositor of, obviously, the moon, and that's because Mars rules Aries. So we have some mutual reception going on here. Moon in an Aries kind of Martian sign, Mars in a lunar sign, and they're in a square to each other. So in my mind, even though there's mutual reception where there is going to be some heated emotion, some reactions, some knee-jerk reactions, some instinctual things that are going to start kicking in, there is also going to be some more moodiness of Mars in Cancer. There is going to be themes revolving around protecting your home, protecting your family, protecting your loved ones, your resources, right? And Mars can be about military. Mars can be about soldiers. It can be about people who are going in and saying, we're here to protect, we're here to defend, we're here to provide. But Aries is the individual. Cancer is the home. Capricorn is the government. These are cops. These are people in military personnel, uniforms. It's going to be anybody who's going to be associated with top-down structures. And then we have the Sun in Libra, which is going to be about working with people or against people, or working with partners or others that we are, giving support or aid to. And the Sun and the Moon are defying both Pluto and Mars. Once again, can't help but notice that the astrology is starting to mirror a lot of the things that are kind of going on in the world. One thing I will say about Aries moons, I'll toot my own horn for a second, is that they're incredibly, incredibly independent, right? Even if they are headstrong and they will challenge you on things and they'll argue with you, the one thing that they can do is that they're very, very, very emotionally resilient. And so you may not have an Aries moon, but when you have this full moon, you're going to get a little taste of what it's like to be able to have one. And collectively, because the North Node is in Aries, we will feel this, I think, much more strongly. Because the ruler of the North Node, Mars, is also connected to the moon, we are going to see that people are going to start really getting to a point where they're sick of their own stuff. Right? They're willing to get out of their own way. They're willing to say, you know what? this is actually not helping me. You know, the fact that I'm not initiating or starting something, the fact that I'm not standing up for myself, if I am not getting out of my own way, if I am going to let fear run the show, you know, it's going to cause more problems, not just for me, but also my relationships to other people, maybe my career, maybe it's also about, you know, a home or a family situation. And it's going to be different for everybody depending on, you know, where the full moon is in your chart. But this is tricky because it's not just like, you know, you guys know by now, I don't really do cookie cutter astrology. And I know that that's not everybody's kind of, I guess, their favorite flavor of astrology. But, you know, that's how I do it. And this is a tricky full moon because it's not just going to be the house that the full moon lands in. Like you may see that's where there is some major, you know, kind of event or conclusion or some kind of, you know, happening. But it's actually going to be where you are pushed into action because Mars, the ruler, which is debilitated in Cancer, right? I've made the joke about the crab that's kind of running around with knife in its hand. It's very Mars in Cancer. You know, you don't know which way they're going to go. You don't know, you know, if they're going to be upset, if they're provoked, if there's going to be some, you know, really strong emotional kind of reaction. And so something, because of the energy of the square, and whenever you have planets square each other, which we have all around, it's actually going to be a grand cardinal square, that is the energy of Mars. So this is a very Martian full moon. Full moon, Aries, square the moon, conjunct Chiron. Now this can be showing us where if we're holding on to anger, hostility, negative emotions, not dealing with the past, not getting out of our own way, responding to things on a purely emotional level, that we could burn something down, right? Like literally Mars in Cancer is burn the house down. And you want to be really mindful that that could be a theme literally or figuratively with this full moon. I do think that the more figurative sense is where we let our emotions kind of get away with themselves, where we are not in tune or aware, or where we have a tendency to lash out maybe emotionally. And in doing so, especially in moments when we're under pressure, right? Mars square this moon, that we say things or we do things or we behave in a way that we would not typically do. And I think that people are more prone to doing this during this full moon. And it's because they're hurting, they're not feeling well, they're sick, they're tired, you know, they're feeling kind of beat down. And we can be more inclined to lash out at people, especially with Mars squares. Now that could be with your roommates, right? It could be with your family, it could be with your partner. But this grand cardinal cross, as you see the moon at 24, Mars at 22, the sun at 24, Pluto at 29, I mean, that's the initiation basically into what will then be a continuation of squares, where we will see the sun in the next coming days square Pluto, where we are having to work together to overcome a long-standing power struggle. And then we start to see at the end of October, Mars coming into its opposition while it's in shadow with Pluto and Capricorn. And if you guys go back to my videos, okay, you could go back to the very first eclipses that I started talking about in Aries. I said the entire eclipse was going to be about people having health problems, needing to learn to be self-sufficient, that people were going to start learning about self-defense, that people were going to start learning about forging, how to be able to look after themselves and their families, or learn to better protect or defend themselves. And I was saying this 2 years ago. So here we are. And we are on the brink in 2025 and 2026 of also seeing then Saturn and Neptune go into Aries, okay? So rather than this sounding like some kind of scary, you're on your own, kid, kind of like preaching, situation, that's not really what this is. This is me saying you have a choice with this full moon. You have a choice if you're going to be incentivized and you're going to be positive and optimistic about making some kind of change, and you're going to see this as an opportunity to
jump into something very suddenly, and that could be something you're reading, something you're learning. It could be a new skill, it could be a new hobby, it could be some kind of travel, something like that, right? Because we are going to see some nice aspects with this moon to Jupiter. Truth be told, that is really the only, I don't like saying good because, you know, good and bad is all relative, but that is the only beneficial aspect that I really see. And like Jupiter is a big one. Granted, Jupiter is now retrograde, but you got to take the wins when you can get them. So having a full moon in Aries, full of fire, making a sextile to Jupiter in Gemini means, you know what? If we can be vulnerable, if we can talk about our feelings, if we can say, hey, this hurts, right? Chiron stuff, or I've experienced this wound, or I'm going through this thing, or I'm trying to heal this thing. If we speak out and we share, or we talk about it, we write about it, we can teach through experience. We can teach other people how to learn how to become their own healers, how to be more vulnerable, right? And how to come to terms with things. I think that's the lesson in all of this. At least that's so far the lesson for me. And we're 2 weeks out from this full moon, so I can only imagine what the next month is going to be like. But I can tell you that you are going to be wanting to lean on looking at the sextile to Jupiter. So I'll definitely talk about that when we go through the 12 rising signs. Now, the Sabian symbol then is going to be 25 degrees of Aries because we round up. So let me get my book. And we can see what that Sabian symbol is. All right, so we've got 25 degrees of Aries, a double promise. The keyword is sensibility. The theme is on the other hand. The symbol speaks to duplication and everything that the two represents. It also speaks to resourcefulness and finding options and alternatives. The image of a double promise alludes to a choice, and here the choice between two options that hold an equal promise. The emphasis on duality highlights the fact that everything in life has both literal and symbolic value, and that every option open to an individual can be viewed in terms of inner subjective value, what it means to the individual, and outer objective value, what it means to others. At its highest, this symbol represents flexibility and the capacity to see both sides of an issue, and talent for getting all things to people, and for getting all things and people to cooperate and work together in harmony. Watch for trickery and duplicity. The accent is on choice and options. There's also an emphasis in this symbol on security and being doubly careful to protect things. Your greatest advantage lies in looking at both sides of an issue, carefully weigh the pros and cons and examine the alternatives. Guard against making a decision too quickly. Don't accept things at face value. They may not be what they appear to be. Stepping stones are duality, choice, alternatives, equality, cooperation, assurance, literal, symbolic meanings, inner and outer, visible and invisible. Wow, the synchronicities in this is just wild. I think it's safe to say we're all fighting battles that not everybody can see. You know what I'm saying? And whether that's like financial struggles, health issues, work problems, family issues, you know, emotional distress. I mean, everybody's fighting through something invisible right now, and being kind to one another and trying to be there to support and also encourage other people is really what we need, right? It's been a really hard thing to watch the last couple of days, seeing some of the stuff that's kind of coming out, at least here in the United States, revolving around parts of the South and the flooding from the hurricane. And people who have been completely like cut off from society. And hearing reports of people on the ground that are saying, you know, people are either being told that they can just stay put and it may be weeks before they get supplies and they may die, or they have to take it upon themselves to, you know, cross waterways and horrific scenes where, you know, stuff is just completely washed away, and be brave enough to go and help others, or, you know, kind of get to safety and security. We're hearing a lot of reports also right now about people who are like, you know, taking their own helicopters, taking their own planes, going places and trying to get supplies to people who are in the mountains, and they're just saying like, fuck it, you know. and basically being told that they will be arrested if they continue to do that. So this whole situation honestly gives me the creeps. It gives me weird Hawaii, Lahaina vibes. The more research that I do about the whole situation, the more I've been uncovering about some of the incredibly rich lithium deposits that are throughout this entire area that has been essentially flooded and devastated. And people are apparently have been and still are, even after the storms, being harassed and asked if they want to sell their land, because potentially they're sitting on, you know, God knows how much money in lithium resources. Anyway, without going on like a total bender about that, you know, I think about this fight of a full moon in Aries and the pain and the fight of trying to survive and overcome, and also overcome hurdles that are happening within the home zone, right? Mars in Cancer. And where some of us are coming aid to other people, some of us are feeling isolated or feeling horrible and wish that they could do more, that they could participate more, and overcoming fear, right? Squares to Pluto, overcoming, you know, being told, you know, by leaders or superiors or by, you know, politicians or like whatever, you know, sorry, this is all we can do to help you. This is all we can give you. And people literally having to kind of like find it within themselves to pull themselves up by the bootstraps and be like, I'll do it myself, you know, or we'll do it. The community will do it. They'll come together. So there's a lot of passion. There's a lot of spirit in this full moon, even though it's intense. You know, difficult times, tough times makes for strong individuals. And I think that this could be a full moon where we actually start to see that in the heat of some of these more difficult events that are happening, we realize how much we actually really do need other people. And I think that that is the lesson with the opposition to both the sun, but as well as Juno in Libra. So this is about like partnership, you know. So, you know, when I think about all of this, I think about also thinking back to that solar eclipse in Aries in spring of 2024, we actually had Mercury retrograde, and it was right at 24 degrees. So the message was there. We weren't getting it, right? It was invisible. We couldn't quite receive it. Mercury was, well, you know, like what could potentially happen in the future, and how do I need to be prepared, and what do I need to be thinking about? How do I need to be, you know, stocking up on things? It could be medication. It could be things revolving around safety and security. And God forbid there is some, you know, kind of emergency that you have what you need. And so this is echoing that because it's on the exact same degree which Mercury was retrograde. Crazy. But it's also bringing up with this full moon old wounds, discussing old wounds. So it can also mean that there's been some stuff that dates back to the spring of this year that you were thinking about, you didn't talk about, you didn't heal, you didn't deal with, you didn't get to the bottom of it. And then it's like, boom, full moon in Aries, you know, the chickens come home to roost. And now you have to deal with some of these emotional issues. Now, Chiron in Aries is an interesting one. I mean, you know, for me, maybe it's different because I've had Chiron square Chiron and I've had Chiron on my moon, but it's been major dietary changes and trying to eat anti-inflammatory. Because if I eat things that are creating inflammation in my body, I have horrible migraines. And like, thankfully, there's been lots of people in my comment section who have been so helpful. You guys have given so many good recommendations. And like, I'm actually really pleased to tell you that it's very rare that I'll get a migraine now. And if I do get a migraine, it's usually because I ate some chocolate or I had some sugar, which I very rarely do these days anymore. So thankfully that's kind of gone away. But I have noticed that the connection with Aries has been very much like allergies, inflammation, sinus related issues, also bumping my head, hitting my head, scratching my face, you know, having issues revolving around my face. That's definitely been a big one as well. With Chiron on my moon, everybody has an opinion about my face these days. So it feels really good to sit here and not and not be seen, actually. It's quite the relief. It's almost as if this terrible bout of food poisoning in some way is healing some of my wounds and maybe making me feel a little bit more comfortable in being able to do my videos and do my work because I'm not feeling judged. You know, to be honest with you guys, as much as I love you, I'm not a fan of being on camera. But nevertheless, I do think that what this has been teaching me is that if we don't deal with emotions, stuff comes back to bite us in the ass. Like, it will manifest in another way. And the moon has that connection to our subconscious, our emotions. It can also be connected to our hormones. It could be female reproductive related things. So is Venus, but still. This is also heated emotions that can inflame things revolving around Cancer, right? I think of like stomach issues, digestional issues. I think of obviously food poisoning is pretty common actually. When Mars goes through Cancer, I see a lot of food poisoning. I see it a lot also when Mars goes through Pisces. I've seen it both. But this one kind of took me by surprise, to be honest with you. And I think that clearly the squares to Mars that are building, and you guys will see some of this as well. You're going to see this with the first quarter square right after the solar eclipse in Libra, where the moon's going to oppose Mars, with the last time that the moon's going to be with Pluto in Capricorn. And then it's going to come into the square with Mars. And then the last quarter squares, it'll conjunct Mars and it'll square off with the sun. Where our gut, and whether this is like our gut microbiome, what our stomach, what our intuition is telling us, maybe something that we're eating that's upsetting the stomach, or maybe it's that our stomach is kind of feeling like it's tied in knots. But there can be lots of stuff revolving around that. And where stress or anxiety can be negatively impacting us and bringing up some issues in the body, where now we're having health problems because our body's trying to send like SOS messages being like, hey, you're not dealing with this thing, you haven't processed this, or you're not paying attention to this. So like, hey, we're going to create an injury, you know, or we're going to let you have a bout of food poisoning. So that way you really sit there and you take the necessary time to integrate and heal, do the healing. Ooh. So much of like Saturn in Pisces and Mars in Cancer has been less about action, more about emotional action. More like, oh, I am noticing and kind of seeing these emotions in action, and how I'm feeling more optimistic, and I'm feeling incentivized, and I'm feeling good emotionally. And then also, you know, we all know how the water signs go. Then there can be your days where you're like, I feel hopeless and I don't know how this is going to work, and I'm really worried, you know. And so I think it's interesting that this particular square with the moon and the rulership of the moon is really kind of highlighting, like, you know, if you don't do the emotional work, it's going to put you down. And that could mean, you know, you have to take a mental health day. You have to take time away from an intense kind of exchange with a relationship. You have to be alone. Maybe you have to go to bed early, right? Maybe you have to make the tweaks or the cuts or the changes within your home or within your family structure, so you're no longer getting triggered. And we all know that Cancer deals with the past. So it's not even just so much about what's going on in our home and how our home is running, and where you're going to see a whole bunch of people who are suddenly going to become very, very, very consumed, okay, over the next month with protecting their home. And I've said this to you guys in previous videos, and I'm going to keep saying it again. Lock your doors, lock your windows. Know what's going on in your neighborhoods, okay? Because Mars is an intruder. And when Mars is coming into Cancer and it's square the north and the south node, this is telling me that people are potentially being put in a position of injuring themselves if they don't know how to properly defend themselves, or they themselves may have wounds inflicted on them by others because they lack the awareness of how to be able to properly protect themselves. Right? Security systems, right? I love Mars in Cancer for getting a big old mean attack dog. I think, you know, you guys want to go and get like adopt like a pit bull, you know, or just a dog that is just going to protect your family, or, you know, your business, or, you know, maybe you want to put your dog through some kind of training, right? Cancer is dogs, and Mars is still in the trine with Saturn, right? And the moon can also be about this. And obviously this is kind of close to some of the dog stars. So we may also see simultaneously an uptick in some people being like, ooh, we're seeing more dog bites, or we're seeing more issues with you know, dogs and property, but, you know, a well-trained dog that is there to protect your home, your family, your business could be extremely, extremely valuable. So especially with these trines to Neptune, it may be a good idea for some people who are like, you know what, maybe we do want to go and adopt a dog. We're going to go to the shelter. That could be a good use of that energy for sure. I mean, it's a much nicer aspect, the trine to Neptune, than the square that we're seeing that's kind of going on in the skies, right? Anyway, moving on to kind of like some of the Chiron themes. So just like in a nutshell, you know, Chiron deals with wisdom and healing. So if you guys are familiar with his story, he was raised by Apollo and Artemis, and he became skilled with medicine. Like he became a healer, a psychic healer. He was also into music and archery and prophecy, and he was renowned as a healer and a mentor, and he taught many Greek heroes like Achilles and Jason how to heal, how to defend themselves, how to protect themselves. So the theme of Chiron, there's always this like wound that comes up, and surprise, we all have a Chiron placement in our chart. You're going to go through your Chiron return somewhere around your, you know, your 50s. But when we have a full moon or an eclipse that's highlighting Chiron, we all collectively feel some kind of wounding, or we're more aware of the themes revolving around wounding. So even though he had amazing healing abilities, Chiron himself was actually wounded by a poison arrow. It was shot by Hercules, obviously caused him a ton of pain since he was, you know, immortal. And this basically symbolized, you know, a deep personal pain or flaw that could not be healed due to his immortality. So the theme of Chiron then takes on this more kind of like sacrifice and redemption kind of lesson, where eventually, you know, to escape his suffering, Chiron voluntarily gave up his immortality, sacrificing himself for Prometheus. And this act actually led Zeus to honor him by placing him in the sky as the constellation of Centaurus. So, you know, the connection to then Chiron in astrology is that Chiron in your natal chart or in transit can represent our deepest wounds. And this is also our vulnerabilities and our path to healing, and the quote unquote wounded healer. So because there's a full moon that's going to be conjunct Aries, we are all collectively feeling some kind of pain, okay? So the pain may be as a result of being stuck in the past, square to Mars, or something that's going on within the homeland, our family, our apartments, our home, our physical spaces. I think that, you know, Chiron transits have taught me that we have the potential to heal others or gain profound wisdom through our own suffering. And I know that that sounds like such like a Saturnian thing to say, but it's very true. I also think that what's kind of cool is that, like, you know, Chiron, he was neither fully human or fully divine. So in astrology, I see Chiron as kind of like this very unique aspect where we kind of feel like we don't belong, or we're different. We're half in, half out in a sense, right? And it can be very, like I said, humbling, and it can very much humanize us. But it also brings up the themes of like where we feel different, where we feel alienated, and also where through that like separation or isolation that we have the ability to see our special gifts or our insights. That's really where we can kind of have that moment of clarity. He was a teacher, so, you know, Chiron teaching throughout mythology, I think, is really significant. I think that significant Chiron placements have always kind of materialized, at least for me in sessions with clients, as kind of seeing people who have had profound experiences revolving around pain and recovery, and how it manifests as, you know, them moving into those types of professions, or maybe there's personal missions revolving around healing or teaching or guiding other people in various kind of healing practices, right? And Chiron does have that unhealable wound. And so when I think about that, I think about Chiron and Aries, and that for many of us, we're kind of recognizing like, wow, you know, there are some personal flaws that are coming up that can be very painful to acknowledge and look at and be aware of. And when we have a full moon in Aries with that sun in opposition to Chiron and Mars square, I'm going to tell you right now, you are going to have friends, family, partners that are going to see the good, bad, and the ugly, you know, and maybe that is what relationships are about. It's like, even when people are sick and they're at their worst, or emotionally they're kind of at rock bottom, or like whatever, you know, it's like, that's what you signed up for. And that also means that people can be a little bit more sensitive to the idea of being vulnerable in these situations or asking for help. It can also mean that people can be more critical of you, okay? Mercury is in Scorpio when we have this full moon. But with that being said, I really feel like this is going to incentivize people to kind of say, you know what, it's harder to be alone. It's harder to isolate myself or focus on my wounds. Let me just heal it. Let me just deal with it, you know, or overcome it so I can reconnect with family, or I can find a partner, or I can, you know, kind of go and be social again. And it's about learning to live with our imperfections and not seeing them as something that is a weakness, but a source of strength. And obviously sacrifice and transformation. I guess that's a big one, connecting to Chiron as well, because Chiron's ultimate sacrifice, you know, for the greater good, it really mirrors Chiron's invitation to like let go of our personal pain or ego for something greater. And that's because it leads to a greater transformation or some type of like enlightenment. So during this full moon, something that you guys really want to do is you want to create time for self-reflection, because with that, you know, debilitated sun in Libra, we can get so consumed and fixated with like what's going on with other people. We have seen a solar eclipse south node in Libra, so maybe there's either a sense of rekindling and reconnecting with people, or kind of realizing that certain things need to kind of go away. And we've also seen a number of squares happening kind of between, you know, Mars and Cancer, and now it's coming into squares with Pluto and Capricorn. So there can be this sense of being like, okay, you know, am I in the right relationship? Am I with the right people, right? Or maybe through pain, through vulnerability, through some kind of injury, through something that's coming up that's making you feel insecure, it's opening the door and allowing the right people to come in, and like having somebody there for you to support you, right? Because Sun and Juno are in conjunction. This is going to be about spouses. This is going to be about partnerships. This is going to be about whether or not the energy of the masculine and the feminine are going to work together, which PS, Mars and Venus have kind of been in a trine leading up to this full moon. So they are harmonizing. Both Aries and Libra are masculine signs, by the way. They're air and fire. But Libra does have that connection to Venus. It is about who are we together. And Aries is more about, well, who am I independently? And we can't really fully function well as a team if we've got one person who's kind of dragging behind, or, you know, they're limping, or they're not able to, you know, be 100% themselves. And sometimes that's what relationships is kind of is about. You pick up the slack for other people. It's not always like a 50-50 situation. You're going to have your good days and your bad days. And maybe some of you guys are going to see that throughout this full moon, that is being shown to you in terms of how you're navigating your home or your living situation, or how you're navigating your career, you know, or some kind of heavy, you know, life-changing situation with the squares to Pluto. But we need self-reflection, especially with a full moon in Aries. We need to burn off some steam. We need to be a little active. We need to, in some cases, we need to heal. It's not always about getting out and going for a run, you know. And I think this is a transit that I have very much underestimated, Chiron on my moon, because I did not anticipate that a lot of what was going to come up was going to be emotional things, which was going to create so many challenges for me, especially the moon rules my 10th house of work. So it's like, if I got a lot of emotional stuff going on, when usually I would just power through it and be like, oh, it'll be fine. Like I'm learning I can't do that, which is a good thing. But this has also taught me with moon and Chiron in opposition to Libra, that if there is some kind of personal issues, relational issues that are kind of hanging around, you know, it does impact and it does affect like relationships. So if you happen to be a cardinal sun, moon, or rising, you know, if you've got anything like around, I would say, yeah, like about 20 to about 26 degrees. I mean, even because Pluto's at 29, I think everybody's going to feel this. But I really think the cardinal signs are going to be feeling this in a very big way. So take some time to kind of step aside from other people and figure out what it is that you need to be working on and what you need to heal, even if it's not taking action, right? We've still got this water trine in the sky. So a lot of it's just about emotional action and processing things. I think empathy and service is a big one because we do have Mars that's coming into a trine with Neptune. So this is like a full moon where it can really indicate where we might naturally empathize with others' pain. And like this can lead us to serving or helping through our own experiences. And that's also the sun in opposition to Chiron and the moon. That's like, what do you need, you know? And I think for some of you guys, this can be a time where the right person can show up in your time of need. And you may want to kind of see what's going on in the Libra area of your chart because it can be coming through there. It is possible. It can also be, coming through the Aries area of your chart because everything's kind of getting like kind of triggered with this big cardinal square. Personal growth, obviously, full moons are about completions, conclusions. So Chiron's placement often, it highlights like where we grow the most. And it's not about overcoming our wound per se, because Chiron has taught me that you learn to live with those wounds. Those scars, are kind of like badges of honor as to where you've been and what you've been through. And we eventually learn to kind of integrate that into our identity and, thus kind of fostering compassion and wisdom and being able to kind of teach through that. Now for the collective themes, the big one is obviously this big cardinal cross. And you guys have heard what I've had to say about crosses and T-squares, right? So a cardinal cross is when we have all of the cardinal elements that are activated and they're in a square with each other. So when you see a grand cross, that means that we've got 4 planetary energies holding the energy in a very tense fashion. And they are all ping-ponging off of each other, right? So coming back to this most recent solar eclipse that we had in Libra, where we were setting new intentions, or maybe there was changes or reconnections or reunions, or meeting people or changes with relationships. Now, 14 days later, that becomes a full moon. And this is obviously bringing up tension in the skies where, the moon is the fastest moving planet. So you guys are going to want to watch the quarter moon in Capricorn coming up this week before we get to the full moon to kind of see what's kind of brewing. But the moon square Mars is where we feel emotionally kind of heated and that there is some kind of pressure to act, to react to things emotionally, to move, to travel, to change homes, to see that it's going to bring about some kind of inflamed situation in some countries. Homelands is Cancer. And then we see the moon oppose the sun. So we're seeing the polarity between the two signs. And then we see the moon coming out of a square with Pluto. So when we have all 4 cardinal points together, my goodness, the cardinal squares it's like fireworks. Right? Because these are the signs that are basically going to say, oh, you're going to do this, I'm going to do that. And it almost acts like a domino effect. Like there's a domino effect. And sure, okay, you're going to hear some astrologers on YouTube that are going to say, oh, we've got a full moon in Aries and it's conjunct Chiron, so we're going to go to war, And if that's what you guys want to believe in, you can believe in that. And do I think that we can see escalated tensions in some areas? Yes, I do. I don't think that you need to have these aspects to see that. I think a full moon in an Aries can bring that inevitably because this is a sign that is associated with war and conflict and fighting and violence and self-defense. But because there are so many things here that are taking place, it's almost like there's going to be a domino effect. And I think that while the full moon will be brought in the area of Aries, so we may see more issues with frustration, rage, anger, things revolving around military and where this is actually, it's doing the individual a disservice. Like I see the full moon in Chiron in Aries being like, war is not doing anything for us on an individual level. It's killing people. War is something that young men go to die in just to make a bunch of old, rich guys more money, just to continue that flywheel of just making money and depopulating people. And you may not agree with me on that, And I know, especially coming from somebody who has family members in the military, the amount of pride for serving their country and being able to be there to protect American values, it's a wonderful thing. But unfortunately, it's not really getting us anywhere. And so, very similar to what I said to you guys in this last week, where I said, look, you know, when we have this solar eclipse in Libra, there's going to get some stuff that's going to get kicked up in Israel and Iran, and also NATO planets are getting now activated now into next year, and that we will continue to see some of this stuff. But these are like standoffs. So Mars and the moon and Chiron, as we're wounding on an individual level, is bringing up a lot of anger and a lot of frustration, and people having to kind of find their own way or forge at home on their own. And then we see Mars square the sun in Libra, where this can bring some heated tension revolving around relationships with home and family. And then Mars making an opposition to Pluto. It's going to come into opposition with Pluto several times throughout the Mars retrograde, but by the end of October is when you're going to start to really see it in all its glory. Is saying that it quite literally is painting a picture where it's going to be like, well, if you're waiting for someone to come and save you, and if you're allowing that someone, something, right, Pluto and Capricorn, to have power over you, to dictate and control, to manipulate, to withhold stuff and scare you and make you feel defenseless, because Mars and Cancer get scared, then yeah, you are actually going to find that you're potentially going to be experiencing some pain or some suffering or feeling kind of isolated. So the way out of that is going to be working with, well, okay, you know, stuff comes up. We got to take some action. Maybe we got to chop some wood. Maybe we got to, you know, stock some pantries. Maybe we have to, you know, board up some stuff, or we have to be a little bit more on high alert. And that's going to require us also to like really initiate relationships with other people more through Libra. And I really feel like both this full moon square Pluto and Mars in opposition to Pluto is just like a big finger to the establishment, who has said for a very long time, we will keep you safe. We will make sure you have what you need. You know, just give up your rights, give up your securities, give up yourself protection, give us your tax money, right? Do these things and we'll protect you. Part of me feels like saying like, fuck you, FEMA, because you're seeing FEMA coming out saying stuff this week like, well, we don't have any money, right? We don't have enough money to help people through the hurricane season. When billions and billions of our dollars, our tax dollars, has been sent to foreign countries for foreign aid, for wars that have nothing to do with America. And now we have Americans that have no homes. They don't have supplies. They don't have support. They are on their own. And thank God that you're seeing some people who are saying, screw it, I'm going to go in anyway. I'm going to help. And you're seeing supplies and things like that. But we're also hearing stuff like, you know, that they're turning away donations, that you have to go through them. And, you know, if anybody who knows anything about FEMA, after seeing Katrina and some of the other things that have happened, they unfortunately do monopolize on taking advantage of people who are in situations where they essentially can sometimes sign their rights away. And if these people are sitting on potentially a gold mine of resources, in the back of my mind, I'm just kind of like, of course this would happen, right? Of course this would happen. So I'm asking you guys to think some positive thoughts and not just be like, oh, thoughts and prayers, but really this is about, if you can help others in need right now, regardless of where you are and what you got going on, if you're strong enough to do that, help other people. If you're not, then this is about saying, I need help. And this is also about learning how to be more brave in the face of what can feel like a particularly precarious, I think, full moon, but I think it's going to be really into November. I do think that with the Grand Cross configuration, it screams action, conflict, transformation. You know, there is a very dynamic energy going on here, and it's urging all of us towards significant changes or confrontations. And so with Aries fiery kind of energy, like there's this push towards independence. Like this is also being brought forth because of Chiron's involvement, where old wounds around self-identity, self-worth are surfacing, and it's like demanding healing. And so this can be good for collective healing. because now we're finally coming to terms with like, wow, okay, yes, we do need to be, more mindful of, like, could be literal health themes. It doesn't have to just be like emotional healing, spiritual healing. And this is also about a collective call towards healing. So it could manifest as, societal movements towards recognizing individual worth, maybe a surge in self-help or healing practices. Maybe it's going to be about certain military personnel and people jumping in and being like, you know what, we're going to get out there and we're going to help people. We're going to rescue people. Or civilians going out there and saying, we're going to, kind of go and help people. That can be happening as well. Mars in Cancer square this full moon, in a nutshell, is about big emotional reactions coming to the forefront. And it does make us defensive, highly sensitive about our personal space and our family. It does not like to be screwed with. It does not like to be threatened. It does not like to have its home impeded upon, which is why I really am driving home the themes of security, protection, and home. And whether that's just making sure, you're locking stuff at night, or you decide to get a security system, or you're talking to your kids about not answering the front door if there's a stranger, it doesn't matter. These are the themes that are kind of coming up right now with that aspect. Pluto is involved in the square. It's about a 5-degree orb, but it's there, and it's going to be enough to feel it, because right after the full moon, it's then going to come into a square with Pluto as the sun is then coming into a square with Pluto. So you'll feel those Pluto squares kick in for another couple days. And Pluto squares always add intensity, right? This is about bringing some kind of hidden issue to light, especially those related to power dynamics or like deep psychological transformations. And Pluto in Capricorn is in the final throes between now and the third week of November of the most challenging, the most difficult, the heaviest, the most toxic, the most corrupt. I mean, you guys have heard me kind of say affectionately the last year or so that this is when you see, if you believe in like the quote unquote deep state, or if you believe in a shadow government, or that there is some kind of an agenda or something to, have control and take over, that some of the craziest stuff you were going to see was with Pluto and Capricorn, right? At 29 degrees specifically. Go back a couple months ago to when we had the assassination attempt, 29 degrees of Capricorn. So dirty tricks, much. And this is where individuals are basically being like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. And then we may also see that there is going to be some support that's kind of coming up from, the courts or the legal system, or things revolving around, partnerships and people who are saying, yeah, we're not standing for this any longer. But that Pluto square is kind of saying that there is this feeling of, it's now or never, especially with Mars involved. It's now or never. It's like, if I don't do something, this is going to have power over me forever. And I finally just need to kind of purge this thing and get this thing out. And it does require us to be more aware of some of the more psychological kind of undertones that kind of come up. And finally, we see a sextile to Jupiter. So like I said, this is probably the most positive aspect. In the background, yes, the sun is still trining Jupiter, right? Juno is still trining Jupiter. So this is highlighting like where partnership, diplomacy, balance, and good communication can really help us kind of get through. And P.S., Jupiter and Gemini is like your siblings, your neighbors, your communities, newspapers, medias, radios, right? Things that can help us kind of connect with people. And so like Jupiter retrograde, some people don't have cell service. Some people aren't able to call people. They're not able to get the news. They're not able to get the word out about where they are. And I have thought for some time that Uranus going into Gemini next year is probably going to bring back some radios, whether it's like people having radios or radio stations, or maybe we're going to kind of see like that kind of come back a little bit. But where we have to really dig deep to try to find ways to better connect or inform with people, or talk to partners, be positive and kind of optimistic. But it is sextiling Chiron, right? So this could be like healing words, journaling, learning, walking. I mean, like, I love this full moon for being like, you know what? I'm not really ready to like fully commit to like a hardcore workout routine, but like I can, set aside 20 minutes to go for a walk and like listen to my favorite, healing podcast or self-help book, or listen to an astrology forecast, because I'm learning, I'm more optimistic, I'm moving, and like, it kind of helps me with this process while I'm doing something to better take care of my body. Super easy way to kind of put the astrology to work there. And obviously this is offering, you know, kind of like a sliver, because it's a sextile, of optimism or opportunity. So this is suggesting that if we navigate these energies wisely, there is potential for growth, especially in communication and learning. So you'll see some of the most kind of developments in the areas of Aries and Gemini in your chart. I think just in general, you know, when I look at this kind of more like in a personal way, this full moon screams to me, you know, emotional versus action, because there's this tug of war going on between these planets. And so there's this tug of war between the need to act, Aries, feeling defensive, you know, or caring too much, Mars and Cancer, and then balancing these out, these feelings, these emotions out within relationships, Libra. And obviously healing old wounds, with the ruler being in opposition and square. I think this can be saying that, you know, Chiron's really like it's touching on some old pain and some things that are resurfacing, and it's a potent time for healing, but it might require confronting or letting go of past traumas, things that have happened when we were kids, things that have happened in our families for generations, and maybe the trauma that comes with being displaced, right? Losing your home. Anybody who's had to, you know, suddenly leave their home, or, you know, lost their house to a fire or a flood or anything like that. It's just your whole life is swept away, right? And the impact that that has on individuals, especially people who might have lived places their whole life, or they live in places that have been generational. I could definitely see that with the squares to Mars. How to work with this energy? Obviously, the more that you're leaning into Mars trine Neptune, right? Maybe this is about reflecting and meditating, really looking at, you know, your identity and how much you're associating with your wounds and what defines you and what needs healing. This is also learning to act with compassion. Mars trine Neptune. We've also got Mars sextile Uranus in Taurus, so that helps us kind of think on the move. We see opportunities to kind of pivot and shift. And this is going to be about Aries pushing for action, but Mars's influence is acting with heart, not just impulse, right? Being compassionate, being considerate of other people. Seeking growth. You know, we can see growth. We can see optimism, guys. Like I said, we've got to take the wins when we can here. That sextile to Jupiter is definitely going to be about exploration. This is about starting a new course, writing something new, traveling if possible, engaging in activities that expand your mind, writing things down, focusing on mantras. I would use the I am phrase. I am healthy, right? I am abundant. I am worthy. I am capable. I am strong. I am brave. I am overcoming, you know, whatever is in front of me. That kind of stuff. You want to be focusing on how you are moving forward, that you are not feeling victimized by some of the circumstances, that you're going to make lemonade with whatever's going on right now. What you want to watch out for is impulsive actions without thought. Okay? Yes, people are going to be angry. They're going to take things personally. They're going to be projecting. We're going to see emotional outbursts. And also, you want to be careful and make sure that you're not neglecting your self-care. You know, that Mars Chiron stuff, the Moon Chiron stuff can be where you're neglecting self-care, and it can be kind of forcing you, you know, through situations outside of yourself to deal with something that you don't see coming. Yes, the energy can feel a little overwhelming, and so it can also lead to like burnout or conflict. But I do see this as really acting with, you know, emotions and like paying attention to what our emotions are telling us, and that's really how we can kind of best channel these energies. Let's see, what else do I have here for you guys? I would also say, you know, it can be about community or solitude, because I think that this is a lot with, you know, Mars coming into a trine with Neptune and the moon in opposition to the sun, that this can be about finding a balance between engaging with others for support and then also knowing when you need to take some time alone for introspection, and be aware of triggers. You know, there's going to be a lot of triggers with Mars and Cancer. So this can be your deepest insecurities that are kind of coming up. And you can use these moments for growth rather than retreat if you can catch yourself in that moment before you're kind of emotionally reacting to things. We, on the other side of some of this stuff, obviously, you know, you see the Mars square Chiron, which is bringing up some of the same themes of Moon conjunct Chiron. We've got Mercury in Scorpio, not really doing anything. It is still not really wide enough to be a trine, but it is coming into a trine with Saturn, which could be a much more sobering mind, a little bit more committed and more, I think there's more depth with Mercury in Scorpio. We have got Venus that is in a sextile to Pluto, so this can be about profound change and transformation of resources. It's also still in a loose trine to Mars, so we see that we can work together and be passionate. We can initiate change. Venus is also in a trine to Neptune, so this is also about inspiration, spirituality, compassion, the willingness to let things go, right? Especially at 29. Wow, Venus at 29. And just a couple of days after the opposition to Uranus. So I would assume that there is going to be possibly quite a bit of turbulence financially or when it comes to goods or resources leading up to this particular full moon. And that's because, you know, Uranus and Taurus is about instability with land, instability with stock markets, with things revolving around values, goods, food, metals. And Venus is obviously, you know, debilitated in Scorpio. So even though it's had a nice kind of trine for a little bit, that Uranus opposition leading up to this does make me feel like we could see some issues with availability of goods or some spikes in prices. And you guys might actually see that, I mean, throughout the month of October, depending on how some of the strike stuff goes. Now, full moon in Aries, work with fire. Right, that's my recommendation. Whether you have a single little tea light, or maybe you have a 7-day candle, or you want to, you know, write something down and you want to burn it. So I would either be lighting white, orange, or red candles because this symbolizes Aries energy. You can focus on intentions revolving around courage, you know, being brave and encouraging yourself to step forward. It can be about personal empowerment or having the courage to heal. Right? Finally healing situations that have been kind of hanging around for a little bit. I love affirmations and mantras with Aries placements. I feel like if we use affirmations that are focusing on self-love, healing, personal strength, and maybe incorporating like some chanting or some meditation or mantras related to Mars, this could be really beneficial. I also like journaling because this is in a sextile to Jupiter and Gemini. So things that we're writing down and burning, or writing down and putting on the mirror. Maybe we, you know, say it to ourselves every day, or we put it on a sticky note and we put it by our desk at work, you know, something like that. So we have that reminder. So we know that, you know, we are constantly checking in with ourselves and we're doing that necessary work. If you're into herbs and crystals, we want hot things. So we want cinnamon because it's warming, stimulating properties connected with fire. You can use nettle. You can use basil, you can use dandelion. These are all really good herbs associated with Aries. So you can throw that into some tea, you can cook with it, you can put a little bit of it dried, you know, crushed up on a candle, or toss it in with some salt and take a bath. For crystals associated with Aries, I like to use carnelian because this is about enhancing vitality and courage and motivation. I like bloodstone because I feel like it's also good for courage, but it's also good for grounding and its healing properties, especially if you're wanting to like detoxify or take any impurities out of the blood. Tiger's eye for clarity, confidence, you know, and then maybe aligning a little bit more with like the assertiveness of Aries. And yeah, any like dark red stones. So those are generally what I see kind of like with Aries. And then obviously colors, you know, Aries is more so associated with red because red has that connection to Mars, which is about passion, action, and life force. You can use orange if you're in a bit of a crunch, or maybe like a dark red. If you don't have that, you can always use white. White is neutral, totally fine. And you could use like black or even like dark red, I would say. That could be good for like Chiron's aspects, focusing on like deep healing and transformation and grounding, right? And I think that's pretty much it. I think I've kind of touched on everything to give you guys a pretty solid snapshot of what you see coming. Be mindful that this is definitely the moon that we see where we stand in relationship to other people, just because of the opposition. And really, if we're not 100%, then it's not possible for us to be 100% in partnerships to other people. But other people can come in and they can help us get there. They can show us, you know, even through sometimes some challenges or some conflict, we can come out the other side of this full moon and be very appreciative of like who we have or who we're partnered with, or, you know, who our support system is, or through those moments of having some difficult wounding or insecurities that are coming up, it leads us to meeting people who can really kind of help put us back together. All right, so let me take you through the 12 rising signs really quick. As a reminder, I'm a Western astrologer, so that is the type of astrology I like to practice. I'm not a Vedic astrologer, so you're going to want to listen to your Placidus whole rising sign. Okay, that's what you want to listen to. And listen to your rising sign, listen to your sun sign, listen to your moon sign. You will probably get a little bit of medicine from all of those, but the rising sign is probably going to be the most specific and accurate. As a reminder, anybody who's got anything, let's say like 20 to like maybe 25, 26 degrees of Aries, sun, moon, or rising, you're going to be feeling this pretty strongly. Same thing goes for my cardinal signs, so Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. You guys are also feeling this in the hot seat as well. I'm not just going to tell you where the full moon is going to be. I also want you guys to look at where Mars is, okay? Mars in Cancer, because yes, you'll see a completion in the area of Aries, but it's being brought on by a situation, an event, some action going on in the Cancer area of your chart that's pressuring you to kind of get the show on the road. Okay, it might trigger you a little bit. All right, so we're going to start with Aries and Aries rising. Aries, this is your full moon. All right, so welcome to your full moon. It's all about you. And the first house is obviously like your body, yourself, your identity. So I want you to think about what intentions you've had revolving around that over the last 6 months. What you've been changing or healing about yourself, what you've been working on, right? What insecurities have been coming up, what you're needing to kind of heal. And now is the time to really focus on self-care and your personal identity. And in a way, like this can be about finally coming to terms with like healing some aspect of yourself, or, you know, a sense of yourself. Perhaps it could be through physical fitness, but it could also be through therapy or self-reflection. And your actions are supposed to be in alignment with self-improvement. And what's interesting is that the full moon squares Mars, which is your chart ruler, in the 4th, which means that it could be more about emotional stuff, home and family stuff, you know, frustrations revolving around roommates and parents and, you know, things that are kind of bothering you, you know, about your home situation. And maybe it incentivizes you to say, you know what, I'm going to go and like clean out that garage, or I'm going to finally like make a change, or, you know, I'm going to like squash some issue that I have with like, you know, a parent. Or I'm finally moving. I'm going to go and find my own space, or I'm going to go and set up my own, you know, new home or apartment, or, you know, part of my home that I share with somebody else. And so, you know, this is kind of making you a little bit more emotionally reactionary. Okay. That's the one thing that you want to know. And it's going to be about changes that are going on the home front, in contrast to what's happening in relationships and where relationships can be changing. And that could be bringing in home change, family change, but also changes revolving around career and status. So I can just tell you, as an Aries moon myself, I very much resonate with that. Very much. Now that I'm like reading back on my notes, I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because there's a lot of that stuff that's kind of coming up. So hopefully that gives you guys a little bit of insight. Take care of your health, pace yourself, take your time, you know, watch out for some of the hot moods that can kind of come up, and lean into, I think, in my mind, the sextile to Jupiter, where if you can communicate, you can see this through. If you can sit down and write something down, write a letter, write a note, make a phone call, maybe it's about getting active, you know, maybe it's about getting active in your community, maybe it is about moving, maybe it's about traveling, maybe it's about learning. Maybe it's something you write or you teach, or something that you say online that has like a profound shift in regards to, you know, your audience. You know, that could be happening too. You know, sharing your story can be really helpful with somebody with that sextile. And you might be looking at sharing or talking about things more openly, or traveling or relocating as something that's like, you know, a move doesn't have to be a bad thing. And if I am making this change, it can be good. And, you know, like I said, we want to be making like lemonade throughout this entire month. And I think that you're going to be one of the signs that is leaning more into your instinctual nature, because Aries is very instinctual, and it's also kind of like nomadic. So you guys always seem to know when to be like, well, it's time to leave the relationship, or it's time to leave the job or the party, or like whatever. And that may come up for you, and you might use this as an opportunity to be like, okay, I'm gonna keep things moving. Like I'm gonna get out of this situation, or I'm gonna go take a break, or I'm gonna take a vacation, or I'm gonna take a weekend off, to be able to kind of alleviate what can be kind of happening with some of the pressure between homework and relationships. Anyway, good luck, Aries. Enjoy your moon. Let me know what happens. We've got Taurus and Taurus rising. Taurus, you're doing this full moon in Aries in your natal 12th house, where it is hidden, it is subconscious, it is behind the scenes. This is about spiritual growth, isolation. Well, a full moon here is definitely bringing, I guess I would say, spiritual or psychological revelations. And this can be about retreat, this can be about meditation, therapy even, focusing on subconscious issues, which can be profoundly healing. I think of like temples, churches, healing centers, private spaces. And it can be, like I love Taurus 12th house, like infrared saunas for you guys. I love baths and hot spas and private fitness studios and hot yoga. I like the idea of going and being active, or warmth or heat, and also like privacy in some way. Obviously, this is a full moon that is ruled by Mars, and so it is squaring Mars in the 3rd house, which puts a lot of emphasis on kind of your everyday environment, like running around the neighborhood, driving, communicating, talking to siblings, neighbors. It can also be about learning. So it can mean that you're a little snippy when it comes to communicating, and you would rather be alone, or that you need more rest, or you need to be catch up on sleep, or maybe you need to be like healing, and maybe you catch yourself with that Mars square, having a little bit of tension, or maybe having some road rage, and so like you come home and you're like, you know what, I think I need to get some extra sleep tonight, or I need to like meditate. And it's just showing you where there can be a little bit of like I said, like a bite that's kind of coming up in your communication. What I do like though is that you can finally heal something, and it can be very spiritual, and it can be something where you can release and let something go. So like, cord cutting, fire ceremonies, burning, releasing things can be good for this full moon. But it's also simultaneously making a sextile to Jupiter in your 2nd house. So it's almost as if like maybe that you have to quit or give something up. Maybe you have to have a conversation with somebody, right? And it's to receive something better. It's like, yes, there's an ending here, but it's like, actually, you're going to receive something better. Maybe getting it off of your chest will make you feel more comfortable, more confident. You'll feel more secure. Maybe it's going to bring in new financial opportunities as well, right? That could be kind of happening. And so certainly, when we put the pieces together and we start to see like, well, Mars also opposing Pluto, and it's coming into squares with your 6th house. This could be contract negotiations at work. This could be changes with your schedule. This could be legal matters. This could be also things revolving around scheduling and traveling. So there's a lot of moving parts here with the square, but for right now, just take your time, don't rush through things, be mindful of your communication, and if you need to take a little bit of time to kind of rest and recuperate and reflect, I recommend doing that during this full moon. Good luck, Taurus. We've got Gemini and Gemini rising. You guys are going to be doing this full moon taking place in Aries in your natal 11th house. Obviously, nice aspects for you, Gemini. Air and fire, they do well together. So this is naturally sextiling Jupiter in your sign. So when you have a full moon in the 11th, there is this emphasis on parties and gatherings and networks and your audience and, kind of gathering together with others. So themes of friendships, right? With Chiron there, could hurt or heal. So you could like smooth over an issue you had with a friend. You could reconnect with somebody and, you could feel like there's been healing there. There could be a friendship falling out that could kind of come up. There can also be this sense of feeling like you really want to belong. And maybe you're trying to figure out where you belong, right? Because Chiron's there in the 11th house and Aries is the individual. Aligning with groups that support your healing journey, group activities that can be therapeutic, right? Or, fitness classes or groups or gyms, like that can be kind of coming up as well, or just like working out with friends. And obviously the squares Mars in your second house. So I think Mars in the second house is like, it can be bringing up, okay, well, I got accepted into this group or to this club, and it's like, it's going to cost me, right? Mars in the second, to join this, or I'm paying for the subscription to be a part of the group, but do I really feel included, right? Or am I just a number? Conflict that you can have with groups of people or friends revolving around money as well. Obviously, this is squaring the moon, it's squaring the sun, but these are sextiling or trining your planets. So I don't think it's going to be as challenging for you. It might manifest as like home expenses or having to spend a little bit more money on health or healing, or food, or kind of socializing, children even, Mars squaring the 5th house is like birthday parties, gifts, and things revolving around kids or romantic partners. And this could also represent spending money because of things revolving around friends, parties, gatherings, and get-togethers. So good times could be a little costly, I guess, is basically my takeaway. And you want to be making sure that you're surrounding yourself with people who are feeling incentivized to want to work on themselves and better themselves, because you're going to become most like the people that you're going to spend time around, right? Anyway, so I hope that that's helpful for you, Gemini. I hope that you enjoy that full moon. We've got Cancer and Cancer rising. All right, Cancer, put on your big boy and girl shorts for this one, okay? You're gonna have to just like wipe your sniffles, wipe your nose on your sleeve. You will be fine. I feel like you may be the one that is actually, everybody has potential, but Mars in your first house makes me feel like this full moon is going to be what you make of it, okay? So the full moon in itself is in your 10th house. So this is going to be taking place in your 10th house, which deals with career and your public image and your reputation and things revolving around your identity out in the world. So a 10th house full moon could be things like changing jobs, getting a job, having a falling out with a boss, retiring, major twists and turns kind of going on with the company that you're working for, stuff revolving around parenting themes, and Chiron is there. So it's like wanting to heal something revolving around your public perception or the perception of you. Going through some kind of like crisis, like what do I want to be when I grow up? What is my purpose? Why am I here? Why do I keep having these issues or these problems with bosses? Or maybe you're on a healing journey and you're recognizing and realizing that, part of this journey is healing something revolving around your identity and like doing something more independent, right? So it can be the pain in the process of like being independent and, working for yourself. That's possible. Or working in a healing field, I guess. If you work in a healing field or spiritual or anything like that, medical, it can be a little bit more active. Anyway, yes, there can be more recognition that can come your way. And usually that recognition will come from healing your wounds, right? And this is coming from somebody who's got a natal Chiron in the 10th house. It's so funny that like for the longest time I was like, I have to be this thing and I have to like go to school and have this degree and do this and do that. And then I realized I was like, that doesn't make me happy. And this shift into eventually working for myself and then putting myself out there, even though I didn't really feel crazy about it, ultimately ended up being the keys to the success for owning and running my own business for, the last 12 years. So feel good about this moment. If it means that you're changing your job because you're going in a different direction, great. If this means you're launching something and you feel incentivized, awesome. If this means you're taking on some new project or new responsibility, awesome. It's ruled by Mars, which is in your sign. You have to feel emotionally incentivized to make this change. And by the way, okay, and I guess I should have said this, but like for everybody, North Node's still in Aries until the new year. And then next year, Saturn and Neptune show up. So for a lot of you guys, it's just this continuation of this realization that if something's not working, it's not working and you need to do something different. And if something is calling you, then it's about stepping up to the plate and being like, okay, I can do this. Obviously, there's pressure going on the home front or the emotional front. There's also pressure going on with relationships or clients. So as you go through the rest of the month of October, be mindful that you're a little bit more sensitive. And you can be also like in a rush, or there can be a sense of being impatient or being a little aggressive or being frustrated. And we want to be mindful that you're a little bit more under the microscope with this full moon in your 10th house. So that can definitely bring up some frustration or some issues that you can have with conflicts with other people. So really just kind of take your time, and leaning into the sextile with Jupiter means that part of this is like learning to let go and let God, and like trusting that if something is supposed to end, it's ending for a good reason, or maybe something better is coming in, or there's a new job behind the scenes, or you're going back to school, or maybe you're like, I'm retiring and I'm going to take some time off and I'm going to travel. There is some good things that are kind of hiding in the background here, but a lot of it's going to revolve around your faith. And if something does change job-wise, it's like opening the door for you to continue your education and continue to expand in new ways. Good luck, Cancer. We've got Leo and Leo rising. You guys are going to experience this full moon in Aries in your natal 9th house. This will be obviously in a fellow sister fire sign, so it will be trining most likely your sun, moon, rising, especially if you're like within the second decan. So this is going to promote fire trines, which is going to have you feeling a little bit more adventurous, right? Like a full moon in the 9th house could be, I'm on an airplane, I'm traveling, or something shifting around my philosophy. You're expanding your horizons here. And this could be literally or philosophically. So travel, education, these things offer you perspective, especially when it comes to healing. Watch for philosophical clashes here. Watch for issues where there could be some conflict with like a professor, a teacher, a mentor. The 9th house can be law and legality, where there could be some like legal issues or traveling issues, or there could be, some hiccups or challenges, especially if you're like flying on this day. That could happen. I do think that this is also about where you're learning to come to some bigger realizations about your beliefs. And I think it's about the world, because this is ruled by Mars, and Mars is in your 12th house of Cancer, which is like your subconscious feelings about the state of the world and what's going on, and like how you feel about the rising tensions in the world, and whether or not peace is possible. And that might be something that's like really on your mind. But a full moon in the 9th house could be things like completing a certification, graduating from something, getting accepted into a course or a college, acceptance letters, things like that can come up as well. I'm more concerned about traveling. Like if you're traveling to foreign places at this time, or you're trying to fly in or out of an airport during this time, you might have some issues, some turbulence, some weather, some problems, because this is going to be squaring Mars in the 12th house, which means that there can be some tension, or there can be, touch wood, some situations in parts of the world that may feel a little less than safe. And so your intuition can be kind of kicking up, and you could be like, I don't know how I feel about traveling right now, or I'm going to like look at the weather advisory. Like that stuff can be coming up. If it's more spiritual or philosophical, then I think Mars in the 12th house is actually saying like rest, retreat, making time to kind of heal and be behind the scenes. And I think it could be really great for those of you guys who are continuing your education, or if you're doing any kind of like shamanic healing, or if you're trying to do some past life regression work, or maybe you're going somewhere for some like medicinal ceremonies or things like that. That could actually be like really great with some of these aspects. Okay. Good luck, Leo. We've got Virgo and Virgo rising. You guys are going to be experiencing the full moon in Aries in your natal 8th house, which obviously is a house where things can kind of be a little spooky. This is a sign that in conjuncts or quincunxes you, right? So you guys don't see eye to eye. You're very mercurial. It's about facts and figures and, organization and cleanliness and making sense of things. And then Aries is kind of like shooting from the hip, right? So change comes very quickly when you have Aries in the 8th house. This is something where, you can change and transform yourself rapidly if you want to, because Aries is a fire sign. But the 8th house is also about intimacy. It's about, deep psychological workings. Shared resources can arise. Things revolving around taxes, inheritances, debt, paying things off. So this is generally a full moon where there's a transformative period, and it's great for shadow work and exploring, you know, deeper fears and traumas and overcoming and healing. But it can also be a time where it's like, oh, you know, South Node eclipse you just had in your second house of money. There's changes going on with how I'm making money or how I'm spending money. And then boom, you have an eclipse in the 8th house. And for some of you guys, it could mean you're getting a bank loan. You're getting a higher, you know, kind of credit, you know, I guess, limit. It might mean that you're paying off some debt. It might mean that you're getting hit with a tax bill. I mean, it could be a number of things, which is why I look at where Mars is, and Mars is in the 11th. So I actually feel like it's more about a change of transformation and joint resources stemming from new goals, right? 11th house is goals, it's friends, it's society, but it's in the sign of Cancer. So, you know, you may have a new goal in your life revolving around your home or your family. Maybe you have a goal to pay off some debt before you move into a bigger place. Or maybe, you know, a friend is loaning you money. Literally, Mars square the, you know, full moon in the 8th could be, well, that could be positive because you're receiving support, right? But it also can mean that that comes with some strings attached, because the 8th house can be like a little bit of like a complicated house. To take it a step further, Mars is kind of trining Saturn and Neptune as well. So let's say you're a Virgo rising. You know, if you're somebody who's like, you're getting married, right? Or you're having a baby, or, you know, you're having an engagement party. Mars in the 11th house is like people who are like, oh, give us your gift registry. You know, we'll buy you the china. We'll send you the baby clothes. You know, we'll send you the new housewarming goods that you need. We'll send you some diapers. Things that help you and a partner in some capacity. So that could be one way that that's kind of coming through. Just know that the 8th house is also about endings, and it can be where something ends, right? It can be the death of something. So if it's not financial, if it's not things revolving around joint resources, you could be feeling like there's some intensity coming up revolving around a friendship, where a friendship is making you really reevaluate, do I feel safe and secure in this dynamic anymore? Is our friendship changing? And how do I feel about that change, right? Hopefully that's helpful for you guys. And lean into the sextile to Jupiter also, by the way. Lean into that, because this could mean you're bringing in more resources, payoffs. It could be settlements. It means that you're maybe getting better benefits. Maybe you're getting bonuses. Maybe you are being offered a higher paying job, you know, a better 401k, you know, some kind of like package that could be bringing more in, and it's coming from changing and kind of expanding within your career. All right, so good luck. We move to Libra and Libra rising. Same thing as the other cardinal signs, Libra. Hold on to your shorts. This one is definitely very active, especially if you have planets within the degrees that I mentioned. You're going to be doing the full moon in the 7th house. Okay, so the full moon in the 7th house is bringing this theme revolving around who am I in relationship to other people, right? And so the 7th house is others. It's your counselors, therapists, your partners, your business partners, your marketplace, what you sell. It's your relationship with your spouse or committed one-on-one partners. So when we have a full moon here, yeah, there's big things that are happening in relationship to other people. This is a turning point in relationships. Go back to the storyline of what's been happening since the spring. This is an excellent time to address issues head on, right, Aries? And if you are in a situation where you feel like you need couples counseling, or you need to be meeting with a mentor or a therapist, if you need a manager, if you are wanting to meet with an astrologer, this can be a good time to do it. Now, the challenge is that this is also bringing up, because it opposes your sign where you're going through changes, and in turn it's changing your relationship dynamic with other people. And like, this is about kind of ushering in that energy of Aries, which is a lot more kind of assertive and direct. It's not as like wishy-washy and diplomatic, and like peacemaking is Libra. So it's different than what you're used to. Obviously, we can see big decisions being made in relationships. So it can be things like, yes, we are moving forward with our, you know, business partnership. We're going to do business together. We're signing a contract. Or yes, we are going to move in together. Or we are going to get married, you know, making big decisions with other people. And this is ruled by Mars, which is in your 10th house. So at least Mars in your 10th house, you're feeling incentivized to get work done, right? And like there's a lot of work to do. Mars has been in a trine to Venus, your chart ruler recently. It's been in a trine to Saturn. And so it can mean that there is a lot of momentum revolving around work, but at what cost, right? Mars square Chiron and the full moon in Aries means, is it putting a strain on your marriage? Is it putting a strain on your relationship with others? Are you feeling that people are being kind of heated and combative with you? Are you getting into it with people at work? Are you having to confront other people for things? I know, Libra, you can be feeling a little bit more feisty and kind of like spicy with Mars in your 10th house right now. And certainly October is going to be a month where, as you see all these planets come into a square with Pluto, you're feeling like there needs to be some big changes emotionally or at home. And that might be making you feel incentivized to go, well, it means that I'm making changes at work, or I'm going to make cutbacks maybe through the Mars retrograde. Or I'm just starting to, start having to tell people or confronting people or talking to people about, what these changes might manifest as, right? So Libra, this is definitely, I think for you, more kind of saying like, if you want to bring more people in, then that's fine. Just pace yourself. Don't burn yourself out with Mars in your 10th house. And pay attention to what relationships really help you grow, especially when it comes to your status, your reputation. This could be who you work with, who you align yourself with, who your partners are. I mean, which ones are actually causing you more problems? Which ones are, creating issues and like having to kind of turn them loose? Just as a Libra rising Aries moon, I can tell you guys like, yeah, there's been a handful of clients that I love my clients to death, but there's been a handful of people that are not doing the work. And even though they have standing appointments and they are people who were either coming, monthly or, bi-weekly, and they were missing appointments, I finally got to a point where I was like, I don't really even care if they can pay for it. They're not respecting my time. And I'm busy, and just because you can pay for it doesn't necessarily mean that that's okay. So it has manifested as a lot of me being like, nope, that's time that other people need and other people are going to respect that. And I'm not going to continue to kind of service people who aren't stepping up and doing the work. And yes, it created some conflict, by the way. And P.S. also, lots of 7th house stuff. So lots of like relationship stuff and like needing to deal with like long-standing issues, but also at the same time, the full moon coming in through there, or even like some of the oppositions and the squares to that has also been where it's like, oh, like I'm sick, like my husband's taking care of me, and like, oh, I don't like that, like I like to be able to do things myself, and I don't, with all that cardinal energy, I don't know how to stay put. So it's been really interesting to kind of be like, okay, this is what I have to do now, and learning through that experience that's part of relating. So hopefully that's helpful for you, Libras and Libra risings. Let me know how this manifests. We've got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. You guys are going to be doing a full moon in, you will be doing this in Aries in your natal 6th house. And this is in a fellow Mars sign, but it quincunx or inconjuncts you. So one thing I'll say for you guys is Scorpio and Scorpio rising, 6th house, right? Everything revolving around health and routine, okay? So health results, injuries, your workspace, where healing occurs, right? It can also be pets. It can be also about like holistic healing, not just physical, but emotional wellness. Work routines might need adjustments for personal healing. That can be happening here as well. 6th house is about health and diet. It can be about nutrition as well. And obviously, this is a full moon that is really kind of putting a highlight on you, something about your schedule. Okay, so Mars rules your chart, but it's also the ruler of this moon. So even though the full moon is bringing some completion or conclusion to health, schedule, work-related things, you might feel like you have like a crazy to-do list. It's squaring Mars in the 9th, which means that trying to navigate or maintain your schedule while simultaneously traveling, flying, learning, exploring, trying to make time to like get it all done can have you kind of feeling a little bit run down, right? And so for a lot of like Scorpio and Scorpio risings, I think it's been, well, okay, do we need to kind of take better care of our health so we can travel? Are we, not paying attention to our habits? And so is it kind of putting us in a position of like having to go and find like a healing mentor or like learning a new healing modality? With Mars and Cancer in the 9th house, are we traveling to go and see a practitioner or a healer further away? That kind of stuff can be coming up. Be mindful that you had a solar eclipse in your 12th house. So it's already kind of touching on changes to your health, more psychologically in your sleep schedule. And maybe it can just mean that you're like a little run down because of travel or overworking or education. And it's bringing up a little bit of like, yeah, kind of feeling like, all right, I'm frustrated, you know? But simultaneously, I think Mars in the 9th house it's pushing you to say, I got to figure out like what I'm supposed to do. Like the 6th house is also about bravery. I don't know if you guys know that. It's also about obstacles and overcoming illnesses. And it's also about finding purpose. So there can be this sense with the full moon in the 6th house of being like, there's some stuff coming up for me, whether it's relating to animals or my day-to-day routines, my habits, my health. And yeah, this thing sucks. Like, you know, I'm dealing with an illness or I'm dealing with like a problem with work or an employee issue. But it's pushing me to be like, I'm going to go and figure out like why this is happening, or I'm going to figure out how to fix it, or I'm going to go and learn the skills to overcome it, or I'm going to go and find, you know, a healer that can teach me how to heal it. That kind of stuff is going to come up. 6th and the 9th house can also be about law and legality. So like if there is some existing kind of like legal battle or challenge that's going on, you know, this can bring, okay, I'm finding the attorney, or, you know, we're initiating the lawsuit, like that stuff. And obviously, you know, Mars is squaring the sun in Libra. So there is a lot of like clearing out subconscious issues in relationships and like, you know, where there can be some hidden enemies, and that can actually be kind of rearing its ugly head through issues revolving around relationships or people in your workspace that can be kind of impacting you. And Mars is starting to come into an opposition with Pluto, your other chart ruler. So honestly, I would say to all my Scorpio and Scorpio risings, Mars is now in shadow, okay? So it's in the area which it will retrograde back through. The best way to navigate, I think, this, and I think that this full moon is bringing up the Mars retrograde for you, is like finding a mentor, finding a teacher, finding a practitioner, finding an author, right? Like somebody who's like very 9th house, like guru-y, who can show you the way to be happy, to create, to be healthy, right? Like all of these things as Mars is like trining Saturn and Neptune and also Venus. And look at maybe some setbacks, delays, challenges with work or with your health as the opportunity, the catalyst for, okay, now I'm going to be able to go and find somebody who can teach me how to overcome this. Anyway, I hope that's helpful for you, Scorpio. Keep me updated. All right, we've got Sagittarius rising. You guys are going to be experiencing the full moon in Aries in your natal 5th house. So I think that you will enjoy this full moon maybe a little bit more than most people, especially because it's in a fellow fire sign. So it'll be trining your sun, moon, and rising, especially if you're like 2nd decan of Sag. And the full moon in the 5th house. So this is bringing up themes revolving around creativity, taking chances, romance, self-employment, happiness, you know, children. So a full moon here brings a lot of creativity, a lot of opportunities for expression, especially if you're self-employed or if you're creative, if you're a performer. This can also bring, with Chiron being there, some romantic entanglements. Okay, so it may be highlighting or healing wounds revolving around the heart space or the inner child or dealing with children or, you know, complicated romantic situations or self-love. Aries, after all, is the self. So this can be about engaging in activities that will allow better emotional expression. Now, this full moon, it sextiles Jupiter, right? So in your case, it's very supportive. I think that this is going to be basically being like, if I'm allowed to create, play, have fun, you know, be with a partner, meet somebody, fall in love again, you know, kind of have like a playmate or a way to be able to kind of cut loose, like you'll navigate this so much better. It could be that it could be about a therapist as well, or spending time with like a sibling or going on a road trip, right? Jupiter and Gemini, but pretty nice aspects to your chart ruler. And Venus is just about to come into your sign. So it is also kind of saying that it's going to bring more of this stuff, I think, for you in a very big way. But, you know, could this mean that there is some changes in a romantic relationship that can come up? Yes, those changes can be about kind of being more heart-centered and aware of what the heart wants and what you need, communicating that. It can be about where children are impacting or affecting a relationship, where you know, your own children, if you have kids, are kind of, you know, being brought up in some way. And it looks to me like with this eclipse square Mars, which by the way is in your 8th house, where there is definitely this like kind of pulling back the layers and uncovering and kind of seeing, I think on a much deeper level, like what am I afraid of changing when it comes to my home and my family? And it's also financial, it's also sexual. It's about endings revolving around family and homes and sometimes like death related things, inheritance related things. So to have this full moon in the 5th, it can mean that you're feeling a little bit more risky, like you're willing to take risks and gamble or trade or any of these things. And like, I would be very careful with Mars in shadow in your 8th house. Like if you're doing stuff, if you're gambling money you don't have or that you're not willing to lose, I would be very, very cautious. This can be about sexual healing, sexual trauma. This can also be about being able to get in touch with the inner child and any issues where that younger version of yourself didn't feel safe, didn't feel secure, didn't have its own home, didn't have a safe, family or kind of like home base. And like now that's coming up and you're addressing it. This can be a full moon that can bring up pregnancy, and then also with pregnancy, fear of like, oh my God, what is this going to cost us? Or like, how is this going to change things? But lean into the sextile to Jupiter. And if you are single, go out and put yourself out there, be vulnerable. 5th house is like, go to sporting events, Aries, go to boxing events, go and see baseball games, go and do things where, there's going to be a lot more action kind of going on. And 5th house can be theaters, casinos, bars, stuff like that, where you could meet people. And you have really great aspects also that have been brewing from the 11th house to Jupiter as well. That does make me feel like there's some social opportunities for you to be able to do that. These are very financial houses, Sag. Okay, so a lot of this is about debt management and like how much you're paying things back or how much you owe. And then Pluto is going to be about, the power of your money and your resources. So be careful with taking chances or spending for the sake of spending just to have fun if it's not something you're potentially willing to risk. That's the one thing that I would say with this aspect. All right, good luck. We've got Capricorn and Capricorn rising. You guys are going to be experiencing this full moon in Aries. This will be happening in your natal 4th house. Obviously, for all of my cardinal signs, you guys are really going to be feeling it, and you are you're not an exception because all of you guys have a planet represented. So you guys are all, I think, equally feeling the crunch. But Pluto is definitely one of the more kind of powerful planets. And this is really kind of representing where I think you are being challenged with this full moon to say, I want a change. I want to change when it comes to my home, right? 4th house. I want to change when it comes to this pressure or this intensity revolving around a home or a family situation, an emotional situation, wanting to have your own defined space, wanting to protect your space. Whether this is moving out of a place with another person, moving into something new, if it's having your first apartment of your own, if it's, maybe there's some resisting to going home or being around family, that can kind of come up as well. But a full moon in the 4th house, it generally will bring up family dynamics. They're going to be highlighted. And healing, which involves, past family-related wounds and like creating a nurturing home space or finding emotional roots, having a new space that you're kind of like defining as your own and like putting roots down, or maybe going back home to visit family or your hometown, or healing some kind of like maternal related wounds, especially with the moon being involved there. That can be a theme as well. Women within the home or the family who are dealing with some healing or some wounding related issues. Partners, right, where partners are feeling wounded because you're saying, no, I want my own space, or I want my own defined space. Now, obviously, this full moon is ruled by Mars. Mars is in your opposite sign. This is where you're really starting to feel the effects of Mars starting to come into an opposition with you, where you can feel that there is pushiness going on with relationships and partners, people who are pushing your buttons. It can be family, it can be clients, it could be friends. It could be romantic partners, honestly, spouses and stuff, where, if they're stuck in the past, or they're too emotional, or they're not willing to make change, or they're saying, hey, it's you that won't change, and you're like, no, I'm done with this situation. I want something completely new. That can be leading to some very big changes, either in a sense of your status within your relationships or within your professional life. So those are the things that are kind of getting kicked up and triggered. The The positive is that this does sextile Jupiter in the 6th. So like working healthier habits, staying organized, working from home maybe. This could also mean like you might be moving, but you don't have to be alone, right? Jupiter in the 6th is like you could get a pet, you know? You could get a dog, you could get a cat, you could get a bird, you could get a fish, you know? Although Gemini is more kind of like a bird or like a small like rodent. But you can have something so you're like, oh, I don't have to be alone, you know? So you're kind of learning how to be more kind of independent and like not having to feel that there is as much tension or separation from another person. But you're being brought into what's going to be a particularly intense time with Mars in opposition to Pluto the next couple of months. And I think it's going to be about where some relationships are worth going back to and working on and working through, where other ones you're like, no, I'm not willing to kind of give up my personal power. I'm not willing to change, and like too much has happened, you know? So it's going to depend on your own personal astrology, but a lot of this is about defining your own emotional boundaries, your home boundaries, and creating space in your home that might be more so dedicated towards healing, right? Especially the kitchen. That would be such a great place to kind of get going if you wanted to have some like herbal apothecary jars or something like that in there that could be like really good. And, you know, kitchen magic, like learning how to like heal yourself with like food, and like roots is very much the 4th house. All right, good luck Capricorn. We have got Aquarius, and you know what, now I'm going to take this back because it's now getting into it being too late, so I apologize if I'm confusing you. All right, so we've got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. You guys are going to do this full moon in Aries. It's going to be in your natal 3rd house. The 3rd house obviously has connections and associations with vehicles, your neighborhood, learning, gadgets, siblings, communication. So a full moon in the 3rd house is basically communication, could be healing, right? Clarification in a conversation with somebody, writing down your feelings, telling somebody how you feel, having that, you know, conversation with somebody and trying to like heal or smooth things over. That can all be coming up. And I do think that this is also putting a highlight on like mental stress and communication and the impact that not dealing with it has on your body. Mars in your 6th. It's squaring that, right? Thankfully, like Aries sextiles Aquarius, so it's friendly, you know, it's also simultaneously sextiling Jupiter. So I've seen a lot of Aquarius and Aquarius risings recently that are like, yeah, I'm writing a lot, you know? I'm doing some creative writing. That is the North Node in the 3rd, where you're initiating something new that you do independently, and it's like creative, and then you're also like storytelling, right? Jupiter and Gemini. Or I'm learning how to act, right? Or I'm like getting into like stand-up comedy, or I'm creating a blog, like that kind of stuff where you can be creative and you can share. That's the way out. What's frustrating is that, you know, this full moon, not only is it conjunct Chiron, so there can be some hurt words, hurt feelings, hurt exchanges, but it's also squaring Mars in your 6th. And the positive is that Mars likes being in the 6th house. It needs work to do. The challenge is that I'm wondering, like for some Aquarius and Aquarius risings, you know, what is the work? Mars in the 6th house is, are you having to have something replaced in your home? Are you having to take care of a relative? Is there some kind of frustration revolving around taking care of someone and traveling? How does that work with your work schedule? You know, is it kind of getting discombobulated a little bit? Any of those things can be kind of happening. Obviously, Mars also has connections to, you know, work and your career. So it could be that you're just really busy working and kind of going through things, and you've got a lot of stuff, and like you're just trying to kind of communicate with other people, employees or staff, and you might just feel like there's a lot more of like having to delegate tasks to people and having to like go through like, you know, procedures and operations and like contracts and stuff. And it's a lot of busy work. I would say, because the 3rd house is transportation and the 6th house can be about accidents, obviously touch wood. This is not a full moon that you want to be like texting and driving. You shouldn't be doing that anyway, but this is a little bit more accident prone. This is also like when you're walking, when you're biking, you know, like keep your eyes out, like know what's going on around you. Be mindful of that. Be mindful that this is going to be a full moon that is putting an emphasis on expressing your thoughts and learning a new skill or engaging in therapy that can help. Watch for impulsive words, right? Watch for impulsive words. I think that can happen where you can get kind of riled up about something, or you can be really critical about something, and then you know, it manifests as like, you know, frustration or inflammation in the body. And then you got like a really gnarly stomach ache. You're having some issues revolving around your health with Mars in the 6th house. Mars is starting to sextile Uranus, your traditional ruler. So your modern ruler, excuse me. So there's also this sense of like feeling incentivized to reorganize, clean up, take care of things in the home or take care of business and like make the necessary changes that you need to make. So if that is happening, you know, it is possible that you're just communicating with neighbors, friends, family, you know, whatever, better, and incentivizing people to kind of be involved in some of these changes. Or maybe you're saying, well, we're going to have people working in the house, you know, let's just go away for the weekend. Let's just get out of town. Let's go on a road trip and we'll just make, you know, have some fun out of it rather than feeling like we're just trying to make everything happen at one time. But it can trigger things revolving around travel as well. Okay. So hopefully that's helpful for you guys. Really great full moon. If you've been like working on a blog or a YouTube channel or social media or anything like that, learning a language even, like that kind of stuff, this is where you start to kind of see like, okay, you know, has all the hard work, has it been worth it, right? Has it been worth it? Am I starting to actually really see it come full circle now? Be mindful of how you talk to yourself with that full moon conjunct Chiron as well. Be nice to yourself. All right, we've got finally Pisces and Pisces rising. You guys will be experiencing the full moon in Aries in your natal 2nd house. Obviously, the 2nd house is a house that deals with money. This is also about values. This is about personal style. This is about spending power and your resources, right? Self-esteem is a big one here, especially with the North Node and Chiron being there. It's like, how much do you feel like you're worth? Do you feel good enough? Do you feel valuable, right? Do you think that you're taking enough action or you're initiating enough? Do you believe in yourself? Are you developing some of your skills and your talents? The full moon in the 2nd house is sometimes literally reevaluating your self-worth, but it can also involve like financial changes. It can be about reassessing what truly brings you value. Healing may come through valuing yourself beyond material worth, right? Not connecting your self-worth with like numbers in a bank account or how many cars you have, or you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not that stuff, especially Aries. Like, you are going to be what you feel you're worth. Like, that's what you'll get paid eventually. So a lot of this is like, okay, I know I'm worth more. Okay, but I really know it. I believe it. You know, I feel it. And maybe there is some insecurities revolving around feeling like you're not making enough yet. And that could be Chiron that's kicking in. But this is sextiling Jupiter. So it can mean that what may bring you some security is like home ownership, having a second home, having the freedom to travel, being able to expand or change your home. You know, that might be stuff that you're kind of investing more in. Having family that supports you and makes you feel like loved and safe and secure. I could see that with Jupiter there. And it is squaring Mars in your 5th house. So what's interesting is that Mars in the 5th house, it's going to spend a long time there, Pisces. So that's going to give you guys a lot of time to be like, hey, I want to start my own business, right? 5th house can be entrepreneurial. I'm going to get into professional gambling. Can't recommend it, but some of you might. I'm going to start, you know, doing interior design. I'm going to get into acting. I'm going to launch my own clothing business. I mean, I'm just kind of rambling here, but these could be things that are kind of like, you know, Mars doing an extended retrograde in Cancer in your 5th house, which will trine Saturn and Neptune. So it's going to be about your structure, your vision, your creativity, and ultimately what you put together that you love, that you enjoy, that could then in turn be lucrative. So there is something coming up with the full moon where you're like, I feel like I could be making more, or I need more, or I'm feeling the crunch of finances. And it's incentivizing you to go, I'm going to get crafty. I'm going to get creative. I'm going to make something, right? Jupiter also rules your career, by the way. So the fact that this new moon is sextiling Jupiter is saying like some of you guys might go into real estate. You might be working from home. There might be like a home business or something that could be, you know, I think of like Mars and Cancer in the 5th. Like I've seen people who have that are like, oh, I do like, you know, kids' birthday rentals. And it doesn't sound like much until you realize like how much those people are making, like going and like renting bounce houses or, you know, renting maybe things revolving around birthday parties and celebrations and stuff. Or I've seen people do like home catering or sewing, right? Or like making like dog costumes. That's very like Cancer in the 5th. And that something that was like a passion project turns into something that's like very lucrative and very successful. And so I could see some of you guys trying to figure out, well, where can I be applying myself? What can I learn? What can I be doing? Do I need to learn about importing and exporting? You know, do I need to learn about running my own business? Am I willing to take that chance? And you may be feeling incentivized to either take chances, gamble, invest money, or start investing more in some of your hobbies as a way of becoming more self-sufficient and potentially being able to make more money, right? So I could definitely see that kind of coming in for you guys. But yeah, very financial stuff for Pisces and Pisces rising, because you've had eclipses recently in your 8th, and now you have a full moon in your 2nd. Same thing for Virgo. You guys are having the same thing. So be mindful that it's going to be a little bit more kind of money related, but ask yourself, is it worth taking a risk and investing in the things that you love? And that could be a hobby, that could be a romantic relationship, that could be having a baby, you know, having a kid, and like what that's going to take for you potentially physically or financially to facilitate making that happen, right? So it's going to depend on your personal chart, but that's just some food for thought on this full moon in Aries. Obviously, you know, we'll be kind of watching this build up over like the next 2 weeks. So you guys will see some of these themes kind of coming up just even as early as when this moon goes through Capricorn in about a week. You'll see it square, and you'll want to pay attention to that because, like I said, Pluto's in the final moments. So I welcome your guys' comments. I would love to hear maybe how some of this stuff is manifesting for you. I appreciate you guys listening to my videos, to your comments, your likes, your shares. If you subscribe to my channel or leave me a thumbs up, it's really helpful. It helps the algorithm. It gets my videos out there so other people can kind of see what I'm creating and what I'm doing. And also I think that it's my contribution to the collective. So with that being said, I'm wishing you guys all a happy full moon in Aries, and I look forward to seeing how this manifests for all of us, and may it be something that is inspiring all of us to kind of stand up and create some kind of change and be willing to heal. Even if healing is scary, we have the capabilities of being able to do that. So you guys enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you so much for listening. I will catch you guys back here on Friday. We will be doing some live tarot readings. I hope, fingers crossed, that I'm feeling better. I'm sure I will be. Don't worry, I'm going to be staying down for Wednesday, Thursday. So as you guys are listening to this, I'm definitely in bed. And I plan on being here for the live readings tomorrow, unless otherwise stipulated on my community tab. So just take a look out for that. And I'm wishing you guys a good rest of your week, and I will catch all of you back here very soon. Take care.